The Cubs beat the first place Brewers yesterday with a final score of 3-1. Ian Happ hit a home run, and the Cubs bullpen shut down the Brew Crew. Which pieces of those bullpen could be on the move at the end of this month's trade deadline? We're going to talk about that and more on this edition of the Cubs Baseball Channel. Make sure to like and subscribe. Get in that comment section. Let us know how you feel about this team as they inch closer and closer to that fateful trade deadline at the end of this month. Here is your invitation to our show. What do you say, everybody? Cubs beat the Brewers yesterday. Welcome to the Cubs Baseball Channel. My name's Anthony Pasquale with the great Mick Gillespie. He's on Twitter at Broadcaster Mick. You can find me at Ant_Pasquale3. You can also find the Cubs Baseball Channel on social media, not only just Twitter, but Instagram and TikTok. Find us on there. Engage with us in those profiles. We're going to have a lot of different clips being posted on those channels and, tweet out some questions and things like that. So follow us on there, find us on there, and we'll make sure to talk some Cubs baseball there as well. But the Cubs beat the Brewers yesterday, Mick, 3-1, the final. A great game. How are you feeling?
Yeah, I mean, this is the kind of baseball that we love. The pitching was excellent. I thought that Javier Assad, again, just doesn't look healthy. He looks like he's coming back, but he's not quite back to what he was. But he still just has the ability to wiggle off the hook, man. He's just when you think that he's done, and I'm going to walk like six guys, he still figures out a way to get out. So like he's a really tough kid, and I love when he's on the mound, but the bullpen was great against a really good team. Ian Happ with another home run. Every time the Cubs win, Ian Happ does something. I mean, he's making a believer out of a lot of us with what he's done this year. And this team is going to have to figure out some more wins because this deadline's coming. And I'm on the let's sell wagon, but you know what? They could make things interesting if they can pull off about six more of those.
Yeah, without a doubt. And a big thing that's helping is the fact that the Cubs bullpen has been so good. And let's talk about him. You mentioned Assad 3 1/3, which meant that the bullpen needed to cover, 5 2/3 worth of innings. Drew Smyly gets the win. He had an inning and 2/3, no runs, bringing his season ERA down to 2.79. He's been quietly a really consistent option for the Cubs. Tyson Miller got a hold with a scoreless inning. Leiter Jr., same thing. Porter Hodge allowed the only run of the ball game, but still got out of the inning with the Cubs on top, and Hector Neris recorded his 14th save. So the Cubs had 6 different pitchers combined to shut the Brewers down, essentially. And that bullpen, Jed Hoyer has taken a lot of flack for not getting this team to where they needed to be into this season, but he's got a knack for figuring out the bullpen by about this time. Like last year, I talked about it yesterday. They had Merriweather, Leiter, and Alzolay, and now they're kind of piecing it together, but the bullpen's been really good.
I just wonder if it's too little too late. I mean, I love the way that they pitch. Tyson Miller's been a really great pickup, and to be a guy the Cubs drafted and developed and then bounced around, and now he's got a spot on this team, and he fits it so well. I always knew he was going to be a big leaguer. Figured he'd be a starter, but he's been really nice out of the bullpen. And then, you're starting to get some of your guys back. I mean, that's part of this too, kind of having Hunter Biggie as a player that's like here and gone or whatever, but he's a really good option. You're going to have to do it without Luke Little, and that's bad news. I mean, we kind of talked about that on a short video we put out. He's out for the season. But when you have Leiter Jr. and then Julian Merriweather, and those are 2 really good bullpen pieces. And then and you look at what the Cubs were able to accomplish last year. I know they finished a game short, but so much of it was when you had the A bullpen in with those 2 and Alzolay, you could get a lot of stuff done. And in a way, I feel like that this bullpen right now is even better than that bullpen was last year just because it's a little bit deeper.
Yeah, and you mix in Miller and you mix in Hodge and Smyly, and you've got a bunch of different options. I think the only difference is you don't have that nails on the chalkboard guy for the 9th inning. But I will say Neris has gone about 8 or 9 scoreless outings in a row after a few blowups. So that's been good to see. But you mentioned it. It might be a little bit too little, too late. Jed Hoyer talked to the media and essentially said, we'll read between the lines, but barring a crazy win streak over the next 10 days, the Cubs aren't going to be trying to make the 2024 team better, but they're looking to make the 2025 team better, however that happens.
Yeah, and I hope what Jed Hoyer does is stick to that. I mean, start making moves that are going to affect this roster to build a World Series championship team, not a playoff team. And I know, look, if you get into the playoffs, you have a chance, but I think that teams that win the World Series for the most part are teams that are complete, and this Cubs team just isn't complete, right? What he's got to do is he's got to lay out a vision of what this organization is going to look like next year and years beyond. And I thought that when Theo put together the World Series championship team, there was never a question of what was going on. And then after that, it felt like there was a lot of questions, and obviously he left and, moved on to other stuff, and now it's Jed's turn. But Jed's a really nice guy, and I want to see him succeed, and I think all of us feel that way. We want to see this organization go. I think a lot of Cubs fans, just from reading the comments, really kind of hope that Jed Hoyer moves on and they find somebody else. But he's got an opportunity right now with this trade deadline and the fact that it is a seller's market to really rake in some good future prospects, guys that are going to be able to come in and make a difference. So you got to make the right trades, but or who knows if the Cubs play this game again where they get back in this race and then they buy instead of sell and don't make the playoffs, I'm done with. I mean, like if I'm the owner, I'm going, you know what, this isn't working for me.
Yeah,
I want to have a good game plan, and honestly, watching him talk about that made me feel really comfortable about his vision of where this thing's going.
Yeah, and Hoyer has taken a lot of criticism, but if you look at this offseason, the moves that he did make have been successes. Like Shota Imanaga has been sensational. Michael Busch has been fantastic. You just got to do more, and he just didn't do enough. And now we're at this point again where you're in that limbo of do we buy and make a push for the wild card, or do we try to get better in 2025? And I think 2025 and beyond seems to be where Jed Hoyer's sights are on, and I think that's the smart move.
Yeah, I'm not arguing that at all.
The Cubs did beat the Brewers yesterday, which means they're now 9 back in the NL Central. They cut a game off of that deficit. Still 3.5 back in the NL wild card, chasing quite a bit of teams. That's why the Cubs have only an 8.4% chance to make the playoffs and a 2.1% chance to win the division. If that doesn't make you want to sell, I'm not too sure what will.
Well, the bottom line is this, and how many of these shows have we done? And I say this, it's a 92% chance you don't make the playoffs, right? I mean, like, think about this. And some of you guys are still holding out hope, but 92%, you could get all the way back and not make it and be a game back and you still didn't make it, right? And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter, right? Because at the end of the day, winning the World Series is what this organization should be striving for every single season. But It just doesn't feel like that. It feels like, hey, if we make the playoffs, but making the playoffs is great. But winning the World Series is what you look at what the Yankees do every year, and they look at it as a failure if they don't win the World Series. That's the kind of organization that you want to be.
Yeah, you don't want to squeak in. You want to be a contender, and that's what the Cubs kind of need to get back to. I will say, even if they do sell at this deadline, it doesn't mean that they're going to be a terrible team for the last few weeks or last few months of the season, because they have some quality pieces that are going to still be in place. They're going to have some young guys that are going to have to come up and play. And if those guys are great players, then all of a sudden you look even better for 2025. But forget 2025 for right now. We do have a game tonight. The Cubs take on the Brewers at Wrigley still. This unofficial second half opening homestand continues. This time, a potential trade chip. Jameson Taillon on the mound. He's 7-4 on the year with a 3.10 ERA against Colin, who is also putting together a really strong season for the Brewers, 9-3 with a 3.77. I think tomorrow we'll have to talk about Taillon and his future. But really quick, what do you think about tomorrow's matchup?
Well, I mean, I'm looking at this and I'm going, okay, Taillon is 7-4, 3.10 ERA. I mean, he's been excellent for the Cubs. You look ahead to tomorrow and you see what they got going tomorrow too, as you mentioned. I mean, the starting pitching's been fantastic, but if you could trade Taillon, I would trade him. I think he's had a really great bounce back season, but get that payroll off, get some young pitching prospects, or get some guys that are right on the verge. Teams are going to be so desperate to add guys like Taillon or Mark Leiter Jr. or Nico Horner or whoever, even Ian Happ if if they waived his trade clause, no trade clause. But I mean, that's the market that you have, right? Because there's a lot of teams, even the Cubs could say, hey, we feel like we're in it. The problem is that we've been here before. So I think Taillon has a lot of value, and I would love to see him have another great start.
Yeah, absolutely. It could only drive up his value. I guess we could say tonight could be Jameson Taillon's last start in a Cubs uniform, or potentially his last start at Wrigley Field. Only time will tell. But guys, thank you so much for joining us on the Cubs Baseball channel. We always appreciate you guys liking and subscribing, commenting, finding us on those other social media platforms as well. But the Cubs won a ball game today. Mick and I are both happy about it. So for Mick, I'm Ant. Go Cubs.
Go Cubs.